Welcome. Prologue. In Gnostic cosmology, Archons are a species of beings, inorganics that emerged in the system solar before the formation of the Earth. They are some kind of cyborgs, inhabiting the planetary system, exclusive to the Earth, Sun and Moon, which is described as the virtual world. Stereoma. They build by imitation of geometric shapes, emanated from the plane of mind, the kingdom of generators, the cosmic gods. Archons are a genuine species with their own habitat and could even be considered to be almost divine, but lack of intentionality in oia self-capacity, directive, and they have a disgusting tendency to go out of bounds, imposing itself in the human kingdom. It is said that the Archons feel intense envy towards humanity because we possess the intentionality of which they lack. The myth of Gala describes as the Archons were produced by fractal impact in the dense fields of elementary training. Theme of the arms galactics. When the lion Sophia threw a thread from the galactic core, the Gnostics were very right. These entities are colonizers of solar systems of galaxies. Create together to his collaborators who have left, enlisting the ranks of these entities for their own and selfish interests. All those entities that do not care for the evolution of beings in the multi-universe set of universes, both third-dimensional physics and of non-physical dimensions, but they only think about themselves, feed their deities, the Archons, the rulers, the gods. The Gnostics left it written that they were aware of information about two types of chests, one shaped reptile and the other in the form of a fetus's description totally matches the two types of extraterrestrial beings. When I mean extraterrestrial too, I mean extra-dimensional beings, who are very active in abductions of humans, in ufological sightings throughout the planet, as well as in ancient legends described by all civilization tribes. But these two races of entities, aliens, are only part of the components of the corporation, Archon. I call it a corporation because they are a large group of entities working in unison. There are different types, races, etc., but they all work with the same purpose: to feed and provide of food to their highest hierarchs or deities. Chest from top of the pyramid of power of this corporation are these parasitic entities, is what really means the eye that everything go over the pyramid they show us, the so-called Archons. These entities, to quote all the others, until detach those from his emotional part, soul, and make them sign acts, until control them completely and make them belong to the corporation, possesses in the minds of its victims, until you leave them without will of their own. These victims become portals, organic of these entities. Parasites act through them, these entities, and are enlisted in the corporation. These entities, on the contrary, what many think, they did not come out, never from original source, do not belong to the light, but they came out of the source, dark. Just like there is a fountain light, there is also a source of darkness, is like yin and yang. They come from evil and darkness, extreme. The Gnostics were a group of what we could call shamans, lived in caves and remote villages in the desert and mountains, performed techniques of internalization. They used herbs and mushrooms that help access higher states, elevated consciousness, as well as mantras and prayers. Does not mean self-knowledge. In this way they access the Akashic records of the planet, viewing the true history of the planet and those who manipulate humanity. But all these techniques to access the Akashic records were taught by envoys of the rebel group, who they separated from the Archon corporation. That is why they were eliminated by drivers, and to remove them credibility they created groups or sects with the name of Gnostics, when really they are not. Chapter 1. Waking up as a child. With 3 or 4 years I began to perceive what it was about the existence of the planet. I saw that something was wrong. I put myself in front of him, TV, that is the fontaine in black and white, with a gigantic and domed screen, that incessantly showed images of wars, suffering, misfortunes from time to time, when cartoons shows, repetitive contests where they exhibited stunning women, showing a fake smile to the public. As a child I already had visions of beings that they came to see me, to talk to me about things that a young child cannot understand, but that I understood without know why. Live the years of my childhood contemplating everything to me around, studying the behavior of people without knowing why. I went growing, and the information of me around it was processing in me. Inside I lived every form of control that the Dark Ones used to make the human a biological robot, and 3 of the mandates of the elites. I went to the army for 2 years, forced, due to certain circumstances, of course, since weapons and violence do not attract me. There I saw and could live in myself as they program soldiers through suffering from traumatic shock, physical and psychological abuse. In addition to, they make you repeat phrases every day: dude, I'm a killing machine, suffering in times of peace, glory in times of war, and more talk of painful mental programming. Already at 20 years I woke up to the vision of the 4th dimension. Was walking down the street, a place very busy with people. I began to see that the vast majority of people carried attached to their backs a semi-transparent entity that sometimes he imitated and took the shape of the people to whom they were attached. I mentally asked myself what those were, silhouettes, and an internal voice answered me instantly: those entities feed of the energies of humanity, and they mentally control. Keep asking. I let myself be carried away by that inner voice, explained that these entities are part of the so-called archons, those who they rule from the shadows, since parallel dimensions are entities, extra-dimensional, which are worshipped as gods since the beginning of genetic manipulation of human beings. From this time also that inner voice, he taught me how to repel those beings, by connecting to the source, original, from where all life forms proceeds. Through that connection, parasitic entities are singed, suffer from an energy overload that burn. Also told me that connection to our true origin makes the DNA is unlocked, and you access all the information that was coded by the life designers. I went home and locked myself in privacy of my room. First, the atmosphere, ideal for exercising connection to the source. I don't know how, but lie down and close my eyes, I let myself led by intuition, and already knew how. Doing the exercise is similar to a meditation guided by the inner voice, and visualization. Visualization is a way of creating realities, is a way of creating your dimension. This is known by those dark, and that is why they bombard us with symbology, images, etc. I made the connection, and I have never felt such magnitude of revitalizing energy and such intense relaxation. And I also felt that was one with all the multi-universe set of all universes and dimensions. The original source is not the God they have put us in the religions. That God that has forced us to worship through the beliefs that have instilled is the Archon God, who asks for sacrifices and blood in exchange for your blessings and pleasure. I understood the operation of the energy in the multi-universe, of the way that this can be activated, energy to use for one's own benefit, help towards others, to heal, protect, to achieve all that well you wish. Understood the functioning of the mind of the Archons and their purposes, as well as the entire network of henchmen who help them in achieving this goal. I discovered that this planet is a farm prison, that we are being used as food for various entities, that we are being victims of control, energetic, mental, and brainwashing. Massive. At first I had a feeling of sadness and anger for what they are doing to us. Doing was the desire to go out street and tell all this to people, but I relaxed and understood that that was not would be very useful, since the liberation, it must be at the individual level to then help others. Episode 2, Unmasking the Archons. I was ready to go to a baptism. It was a sunny Sunday at 10 in the morning. Tomorrow the baptism of one of my nephews. It started at 11. I walked to the church with my family. Everything seemed normal and joy until I began to feel a negative feeling of worry and increasingly stronger danger. I was wondering where it all came from, that energy, because I felt concern and danger for no reason, until a few meters away I saw the church. A kind of luminous ray emerged from the cross at the top of the building. In turn, this ray was connected with a mass from semi-dark and transparent energy to, at the same time when I got close to the church. I was able to verify that the energy mass, dark, was made up of a large amount of archons, the same beings that I saw, attached to people. I mentally asked what that was. It meant everything that I was seeing. Amazed, the internal voice answered me immediately that more energetic is a opening in the dimension of the archons. They are connected to all places with great energy influx for feed temples, churches, pagodas, hermitages, mosques, all these structures that are somehow connected to religions. Our source of food from these enters inside with little desire, since I didn't know what it was. What was waiting for me inside the vision was horrible. Walking between the benches, I was able to realize that behind a large figure of the Virgin Mary there, a huge archon collecting energy, which was given to him by an elderly lady, kneeling in front of the statue. And I didn't stop praying. I looked carefully, each of the statues in the church, and they all had those beings attached to them and endlessly absorbing energy. I saw that the energy of the prayers was like small luminous balls of energy, who were attracted by that archon look, well, to these beings, and I realized that a thread of light connected them towards, up to the great mass of dark energy, who had seen the voice above the church. Internal explained to me that these beings, they were all connected in turn with the great chief archon, who is located in the dimension parallel to this dimension of the low fourth dimensional archons, vibration. So I understood that these beings, they function as a large entity all at the same time. Unison is a big teary hive mind. Reality surpasses fiction. The ceremony began, and there was the priest with his ceremonial attire, and also to be sighted by a huge being, hooked to his back and embedded in his head. And I was also observing the scene, engrossed, hallucinating with everything that the great crucifix was happening, was behind the altar, and behind the priest was surrounded by these creatures, semi-transparent, that in turn also was connected to the dark mass. By above the church was a hive of archons fluttering everywhere, who became more and more encouraged after every sermon of the priest. Then came the hard part, when the priest, he grabbed the baby and started giving the sermon. From the baptism a thread of light was deposited in the basin of water. When wetting the head of the child, a huge archon of about 3 meters touched the child's forehead and placed a seal, a mark. When making said mark, the baby started crying very strong, and then that mark was placed of a reddish color until it disappears little by little. What is that brand, he asks internally, and the voice told me that that brand is the seal of the archons. They mark on the human brain the beliefs that the archons themselves have made known, to keep them hypnotized, always depending on something external without. Let us use the power that is in us. Lies in using your inner power and connect with the original source. No longer you depend on nothing external, and you can no longer squeeze tea energetically. That is why they introduce to humans the idea of guilt and original sin. Have lied in everything. We come to this planet without any stain, without crimes committed. We are clean beings, and these entities, they blame us for everything bad that is happening, when they are the ones, they cause pain on the planet to feed on the energy emanated in the fear processes, pain, terror, death, blood, etc. That is the reason for baptism, to seal, know, introduce ourselves mentally, religious beliefs. After having seen all this, I left home shocked by so much information and so many lies, also orchestrated. Lie down in bed and do the exercise. Connection. The inner voice explained to me that when I gained experience in connection could be made only with wish it through thought. Chapter 3, Attacks by the Archons and Aid to the Disembodied. The Archons approached to satisfy your desires, to deceive your Supreme Chief said your mother is going came to us, but Nuria turned towards them and he said, you are the Archons of the darkness, you are cursed. You don't know my mother, she's her similar to what you have known. As for me, it is not yours that I seek, but from the heavenly world of which I came. NH24. The hypostasis of the Archons, 92 hours and 19 minutes to 92 hours and 27 minutes. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was watching a movie in which they talked about spirits, the process of passing the physical death to spiritual life. Movie era Ghost. I think I remember I left to the room to change since that afternoon I had met with friends to go out for a drink. I suddenly saw in a corner of the room a shadow, black woman. Observing the temperature of the room descended quickly and a feeling of anguish ran through my body. That shadow didn't move, it was standing there. I only looked at my voice then. Internal warned me that I had to connect with the source so that that one would go away. Shadow. I made the connection mentally and saw, as that shadow fled across the wall, the voice explained to me that that entity, parasitic, occurs in the form of shadow to feed on fear, being also a parasite that attaches to the human energy field. Sometimes I have also seen how, couple in animals, these entities are very dangerous since, if they stick to you, they weaken you physically and mentally and are lethal. They produce diseases and even kill many human beings, putting ideas of suicide in the mind. Two friends of mine, they committed suicide because of these entities. These beings are entities created by the Archons, are their subjects, and they are also connected to the mind. Hive Archon. After this experience I was amazed at all the entities and handling levels at which we are being subjected. There are several groups of entities that take advantage and they feed on our energies, very intrusive way. I went out with my friends, and that night we decided to go to a concert. What they did in a fairground. When we got there I started to feel the same feeling that in the church there is bugs, I thought internally, and indeed the scenario that was illuminated and the singers who animated to the public were for appointments. That musical group was managed by Archons, looked like puppets dancing to the people who were there are musical dancing. They also had those bugs stuck on their backs. Even my friends, who until then had nothing, they were coupled by these beings. They danced as if possessed. I connected with the source to avoid being sighted. Likewise, then at one point the singer, protagonist of said Archon feast, he made the sign of the horns with his hand, and what I saw was frightening. When I said gesture, a being appeared behind him, dark cuckold, was like the typical image of the devil but black and with yellow eyes. When the people in the audience began to be also the sign of the horns, this frightening being began to smile, and the parasitic beings that carried the people on their backs began to send energy in the form of spheres of colors red, blue, yellow, white. Was surprised and petrified before such a scene, so bizarre. The inner voice explained to me that that entity was one of the bosses, Archons, a kind of supreme god, for those Archon entities, that their sign or signature or symbol were the horns. Name is by that gives me the sign of the horns with connecting fingers directly with said being, and opens a extra-dimensional portal through which appears and devours that energy emanated by people. There are three chief Archons, included Vol, for example. The one with the symbol of the all-seeing eye is the one that has rank and is the one who controls everything from the dimension in which his reigns. Name is Mommy. This entity has the power to control the pineal gland. People who use their key symbol enter your thoughts and go through them. These people are at your disposal. One-sided by minor Archons that plug into the pineal gland, taking control of your thoughts and which are also connected to the reigning entity. These entities have a great hierarchical structure, a pyramid, hierarchical, in which the top is Queen, takes as Mammon the eye that sees everything, the next one who controls everything. Together with Mammon I went to small 8. This entity has the shape of a bird or eagle, etc. is the one that flutters between the parallel dimensions to control that everything is going according to plan. This entity has several workers, their position, and are the ones who control the humanity. Its way of appearing is through unidentified ships that every day they cross the skies, invisible to human eyes, but from time to time they go out of dimension, where they hide in this physical dimension. That's why, according to witnesses, the UFOs they see, they appear and disappear in a second. They do to warn the subconscious of the human beings who are there controlling the prison farm. They do everything for him, farm control abductions, aliens are carried out by the subjects of these entities to experiments with DNA and to mold said DNA to create clones that contain the spark, the human soul, that succulent energy from which they feed. They have warehouses, laboratories dedicated to this task, have great prison ships where they collect millions of these hybrid beings that contain the soul inside, kept in capsules that preserve them for food of the Archons. Humans are kept in prison, called land, that is actually a dome from which there is no escape physically, but to free yourself there is, to do it spiritually with the big soul like the ones he maintains, born because we send energy necessary to vibrate in the area in which that you connect them to a door at the end. That's what the Archons try, create through your workers, geneticists, after everything that he had seen, day at the concert and all the information he had received about the Archons was exhausted. I came home, I lay down in bed and started doing the connection exercise. When the end of the exercise I felt much better, more charged with energy and more animated. Suddenly I perceived a strange vibration, very close. I stayed lying in bed looking at the door since I noticed that someone was coming. I heard sobs coming from the door, knew that someone was approaching slowly, when suddenly I saw him. It was a young woman dressed in a nightgown, dirty and broken. His hair disheveled and black color covered his face with both hands, emitted a bitter cry, and each time it will be more intense and heartbreaking. It seemed to float, did not walk, and moved very slowly. It stopped a few meters away, where I was, and I asked who was and what she wanted, but she only, he sobbed with a heartbreaking voice, and trembling she told me she needed help. I was trapped and suffering a lot. Internally I felt the need to connect it to the source. When I started connecting, it began to shine. All its body, a kind of white aura covered her. Little by little he began to change his appearance. He was no longer crying, he uncovered his face and he smiled. His clothes were not even white, stain her hair on her nightgown now, it was smooth and light brown in color. Then I saw two very luminous beings, they hugged her and ascended with her. As the ray of light went disappearing, I felt great joy and a very satisfied feeling. Big inner voice told me that had just freed a disembodied man, trapped a soul in pain that carried time, trapped between this dimension and the astral. All this happens because they are attracted by the dark to repeat the physical incarnation cycle too, called in sorry and will of karma. When a person dies physically, soul comes out, and the first thing it finds, it is these beings that are components of the Archon corporation, disguised as beings, angelic images of Jesus, Buddha, etc., and with religious ones, or by entities that are known by the mental patterns of the individual who is told to follow, reincarnated to pay off the debt he has left on the planet. When a being does not agree to return under its free will, these beings get angry a lot and they leave the being that has been refused to return, thrown into the hands of other entities that torment him until that has not been removed from there. There are several ways to get out, is to help you, a be that he knows how to get you out, and the other, being aware that we all come from the original source and want to return to. That's why they have kept us apart of our true potential, and always they have put idols and false gods in the exterior of the human to maintain us enslaved and returning again and again. At the beginning of the will of reincarnation also, when reincarnated, they do a memory erase so that it doesn't exhausts. There are times when an incarnated soul breaks with that memory erase and starts to remember events from your previous incarnations. This occurs because the soul has realized the deception and agrees to these past memories to give the warning to the brain and not fall back into trap. There are also those souls who choose come to this planet to perform help work for planet Earth and humanity, to help ascend vibrational mind to the planet. There are beings evolved on the planet, they are working to raise the vibration of Mother Earth. Asks the voice internal that how could I find said evolved beings. Their response was the next, you will find each other without it being necessary, the search. You are on the same side, everything will happen just as it has to happen, it is planned to be so. Chapter 4 Planetary Mind Control. That day I went to the cinema to see Matrix. Cinema, I love the atmosphere, the smell of the popcorn, the excitement of seeing in that giant screen images that reach the soul in a special way. Never better said, it reaches the soul from the beginning of the movie to the end. I saw that the messages were real, that the world is a farce, a matrix, holographic, in which we are being manipulated and used as food. Everything in the movie was just as it is, real life. I left the cinema and mentally, I was thinking about the subject of movies, and the messages they carry, so shameless, and so clearly. The inner voice told me, that they expose all this publicly, so that when someone wakes up, speaking on the subject, they call him crazy, filmmaker, and conspiracy monger. All good, designed by the dark ones, is a control. Planetary mental at all levels, movies, TV shows, news, etc. are programs, mental preparations for the great, world-numbing hypnosis. Prison farm is a round plan for, distract, avoid, awakening and escape, of the farm while thinking about everything. This looked like energy vampires, parasites fed on people, that humans walked around me, are not aware of these entities, they see beyond their world of clear entertainment. The same word, he says it, I entertain and I lie, that's what representatives and collaborators do. Of the Archons, as they are called, parasites that attach to humans, to feed on their energies, are the lackeys of their Archon masters, who, they drain people's energy, and animals of the planet and even plants and objects are energy vampires, are the peace that are in turn connected with their masters through their lackeys. These governing entities of the dimension dark possess the minds of beings, these ancient entities alive, to come to the physical plane and carry out the total domination of one of the farms, prison, that his collaborators have created. They enter a physical body, previously designed for this purpose. Your collaborators can build, extraterrestrial geneticists and their lineages, a physically resistant body based in humanoid DNA, resistant to high temperatures, high-rank Archon vibes, that will temporarily occupy such a shell, to access this third dimension and use the shell or physical body. First they need to be called, through specially designed mantras for them, through the frequencies of sound that connect with these entities, so dark and evil. They also need of a ritual based on sacrifice, human blood ritual for said access. In these cases is with a victim, human to call them, since it is necessary, of great energy or frequency, high in the place to feed the entity. For minor archons of the hierarchy, with the ritual sacrifice of an animal is enough, but for a high entity, range takes a human life. Shows based on sacrifices of animal lives are dedicated to entities very close to this dimension. Example of them are the bullfights. Archons are like sharks in the sea, needs meat and blood to being attracted, are predators, very phrases, and dangerous. You have to know how to call them, so as not to be attacked. This is how they perform satanic rituals. They first prepare the environment for, make it suitable for said entities, are very selective. If they don't like the environment, will not access the place where do the ritual. You have to decorate it, place an altar to offer them the gift, create the right atmosphere for that can access this dimension, through 3 songs and you will give me, that they themselves gave to their collaborators and descendants. These Midra Asman chants 3 prayers, as well as symbology, are keys to connect with them. Each image, sound, mantra, etc. has a specific vibration. These entities and his collaborators know this, and everything what they use, they do it knowing that each element connects with them. For that reason, use certain incantations, words, key for both rituals and opening of extra-dimensional portals, such as effect mental control on certain slaves. Hidden, they have revealed it, they have explained it. Hook words are used to activate certain created personalities in the minds of the slaves, are trigger words, action, personality that is inserted as of mental programs in the subconscious of said puppets, used by the components of the psychopathic elite. Armies of these biological robots are Prepared and trained in places, specific for the time, join the army of the new, Archon order that will take control of the, prison planet. All this information, my mind came in milliseconds. I understood everything. The pieces of the puzzle, were fitting, and the understanding of the, place called where was in these, moments gave me an idea of the meaning of, human existence. For this there was, come to the prison planet to help the, planet Earth to wake up and help, Mother Earth to break the, chains of, slavery imposed by some, dark entities that have created together, its collaborators, a vast network of, prison farm systems with the only, reason to stock up on food like this. The panorama is shocking but very, real, no matter how much human beings, under hypnotic control so, strongly inserted, deny it again and again, clear all this information, makes the mind reset again. That hurts because it breaks all your, strategic mental schemes, created by these archons. If they're collaborators. I came home and turned on the, television, suddenly felt a strong, numbing vibration. Was the, news hour. The presenter talked and talked about, events, wars, disasters, based on how bad the planet is. From time to time when I looked closely at the, presenter, watched her change, look was something strange. When feeling the, drowsiness, did not notice anything and remained, as if hypnotized. My mind went alone. I thought about what that lady said, robotic way, couldn't think, freely. Then to get out of that, state I looked elsewhere. I came to, I got dizzy and I couldn't think. Well, was happening? I wondered, mentally. The inner voice told me that hypnosis they were doing, through electromagnetic waves, frequencies through the antennas, television is very powerful, and if not, you connect with the original source through, packages of, data directly to the subconscious, shaping the way you think and feel, based on fear, the trauma, the low, self-esteem, pessimism, negativity vibes. They are exquisite dishes for these, evil entities. In addition, the presenters of the, news and television programs, they are also controlled both, mentally as physically. Everyone is, foresighted in one way or another. Some don't even have a soul, others don't, they are humans. These entities are, infiltrated the media to program, to humanity, simple rappers, humans led by cold and, controlling like they are not human. That was a surprise to me. I couldn't, stop thinking about those manipulated. We are being on this prison planet, exactly manipulated and hypnotized, through the frequencies, the programs, mental processes that insert you into everything, it surrounds you. Advertisements, movies, music, magazines, comics, cartoons, everything that surrounds you is designed for this same, and the control and numbing of, the entire planet, so that no one escapes from the prison farm. Have placed filters and barriers at all levels, both physical, mental, spiritual, everything, completely confused. Prevent slave escape, clearly a great program, strategically planned by these clever minds, and old as the universe. Yes, to thief. That's why the history of human always has been based on deception, violence conquers wars, etc. Everything to redirect free will of the slave towards the established end. For these scavenging vermin, they go directing the destiny of humans, subtly to direct us towards the complete control by doing it in a way so cunning and subtle they avoid being punished. For those who ensure that the laws, universals, are fulfilled even by the laws of attraction, since it's simply, they are giving what the human collective asks subconsciously to act that way, they pull the strings stealthily, so as not to have to force anyone to perform acts so aberrant that they end up starring in Chapter 5. The space scam was lying on the bed. From the window I could see how the stars shone and twinkled. It was hot and the moon was full, illuminated everything. One beautiful night I got carried away by the imagination and I flew through it. Universe, I gave myself, leaving the planet, visiting the moon, Mars, the rings, Saturn, dodging meteorites in plan. Superman was happily casting imagination fly, when suddenly the soft murmur of the inner voice took you out of that fantasy world. That will be one of the few ways that you will have to leave this planet. Dark ones created a vault around this prison planet to avoid physical escape of slaves. Amazed by this information, I asked the voice of Alt, explain that to me. The controllers, planet built around the planet, an electromagnetic barrier, using wave technology, vibrations to prevent leaks of the slaves, because in the past there were technological advances by groups, rebels who escaped from the planet and they went to Mars. They faced the controllers and there was a great war, atomic and other plasma weapons, vibrational wave psychotronics, etc. They also do it so that the photons loaded with information important for unlocking DNA. In DNA strands have codes, energetic light that as a key, they are activated by absorbing said energy, coming from the center of the multiverse of the central sun and the original source. If they prevent so many photons from reaching the planet, stop the massive escape of slaves. That is why they fumigate with so many substances the dome. That way, they strengthen it and make the mirror effect, bouncing almost all of said energy so important for awakening of the human. The earth is not what it seems to be, a planet covered with a dome in which you are all locked up. You are prisoners of entities that they feed on you. Collaborators of the Archons created this prison farm with life forms from various solar systems. They do this in all the universes that they conquer, both on land and in the other prison farms, placed said electromagnetic barrier around to lock up the slaves without possibilities, and technology is censored. Only technology goes limited, primitive to scroll. The domes occasionally incarnate in the planet's beings of light in charge to provide technological advances, evolved to try to help the prisoners, but the collaborators of the Archons are in charge of eliminating them, to requisition all inventions and hide them. But and the satellites that orbit the planet, they are a farce. They use holograms so that you see things that are not there. They have another class of spy satellites. An example of this is the so-called Black Knight said. Spy satellite has all the information of all the races of beings that you live in the planet, as well as DNA of all forms of life, in case they had to repopulate the planet after having carried out a controlled mass extinction due to a awakening or total farm rebellion. Prison, the so-called reset eos, the last, it was the universal flood. The moon, for example, is one of the artificial satellites, in which also of having antennas that are pointing towards yours to induce a state continuous hypnosis and blocking reception of DNA, activating photons, strengthens the holographic grid that surround the planet, the dome, to block said photonic energies coming from the center of the galaxy and the sun that would help activate DNA released from the holographic prison, and providing important knowledge. For this release they have several methods and technologies: wave antennas, electromagnetic waves that enter, are fumigations that are used for various targets using microwave and sounds. How we can escape from this madness, I said, completely astonished. Through your inner strength and connecting with the original source. You must do it that simple way, but powerful, and without depending on anything external, since in everything there are collaborating agents working to leave you in this trapped dimension. Everything is manipulated, even in the slightest there is manipulation. That's why you have to do it individually, through feeling and display. For this reason so many are being carried out, mental programming through music, movies, books, etc. have all the means to make you dependent on the external entertainment and external distraction, all mental, nothing spiritually and true. Then I began to perform the little by little connection. The inner voice me I was guiding, I noticed the connection with the all the energy ran through my entire body, and my being a comforting calm and peace. It covered me completely, and I felt free like an eagle soaring through the skies, and universes were merging me little by little with everything. After visualization I fell asleep. I dreamed that I was in an underground base. I saw a group of scientists and military. They observed an artifact shaped like a round door with symbols, uniforms. Came to mind that they were Sumerian symbols. These symbols they were lighting up as one of the scientists were typing on a computer a series of coordinates that they were displayed on A table with images. Holographic. This whole scene, I remembered the movie until the door with symbols with reports soon started to vibrate, and a kind of liquid began to cover the inside of the door that shined brightly was identical to the movie star. Get the door would be about 20 meters high and as many wide as it was enormous. Damn, the military put on a suit, special like astronauts but less voluminous. Then they entered a ship. After touching some keys on a computer, scientists, the machine or ship began to light up and a kind of wheel with a generator began to loosen, some electric currents putting themselves into march. The ship was on a species of rails that ended in the portal. It was about 20 meters away or something like that, began to pick up speed and in a second crossed the portal, materializing. The scene reminded me also to the movie Back to the Future. When the ship disappeared, I could see how scientists and senior staff soldiers were watching a huge screen placed on one of the walls of the enclosure that projected images of what that seemed to be another net, a world similar to the Earth, but with the difference that in the sky it seemed there are two suns and other planets or satellites that were unknown to me. I mentally asked about that place. It was seen on the screen next to me. There was a being of light that shone like a firefly. He quickly answered me, saying, "Brother, is the place you are seeing is one of the living libraries of a solar system located millions of years away, light away from this galaxy in the which are we located. These collaborators of the Archons go to planets that have multiple forms of life which capture and bring to bases of genetic experimentation such as, have you been able to see these beings have shapes? Very sophisticated travelers use the extra-dimensional portals to go to other planets, all with the help of their Anunnaki geneticist supervisors. Avatar movie is real. Keep battles with planets that are free, archonic interferences if they wish. Enslave, sometimes usurping the laws, free will. Chapter 6. By recognizing and repelling the archons we claim our power, we define our limits in the framework cosmic and establish our purpose, relating to Gaia, the indwelling intelligence on the planet. Gnostic texts, that's the way to beat these entities, recognizing and repelling, reclaiming our power, connecting with the original source, that light that emanates our soul in a state of alert. Burn that inner power, destroys them. That's why they keep the vast majority of humanity in a state of lethargy with the soul blocked, and we keep the human more attentive from external distractions, passengers that not from the internal and really spiritual. After having experiences with these entities and expel people, places, fight with them almost daily, he collects lots of information about who they are, who really are your collaborators, those who provide food and they worship as deities, because that's what they are to all their collaborators are God's powerful beings, immaterial with great wisdom, ancient as old as the universe. Often ask me where did these entities come from? Vampires. Who created them? After much research to go, asking these entities and their minions through their victims in state of hypnosis, or sometimes to them, I have directly come to the conclusion that they emerged from a dark area that connects with all dimensions to the time this entity creating source. Dark matches in all descriptions such as dark fonts. Such, and how does the creative source exist? Original of the life-giving light, benevolent cosmic world of which all form of life and light arises, also exists. Its negative side, the source of the darkness. Every time I've asked, these creatures have answered me, themselves they created themselves not, they need nothing and no one to be born. They are so arrogant that they do not recognize that were created. Look and feel so powerful. People who proclaim themselves gods and their collaborators adore them as such. How they recruit entities to their rows. I was wondering how they do it, convince all those kinds of entities to join them through deception and usurpation of your psychic part or soul. Firstly, they possess the minds of who are chosen to belong to the group. Little by little they seduce them, grant power and leadership positions within the Archon group. They have thus fallen in the trap. All the components of that dimension they sold their souls to Acquiring power is what is commonly done, it is called selling your soul to the devil. Once the pact is made to sell one's soul to, these entities are separated from the part, emotional, and replaced for a time by an entity of that dimension, the soul. Thereafter an entity, parasitic, will take power and control on the victim's body, becoming an organic portal, a avatar of these entities. Through they will access the physical planes for real livelihood work, energy creation of farms, prison, and maintenance of that vast network of food trafficking. These entities, they only think about colonizing universes, impersonate the source, original, feeding on beings, genetically modified by their groups of geneticists, asking for adoration, perpetual and ritual sacrifices. These entities discovered that through pain and the maximum excitement of his victims got a large amount of energetic and vibrational food is for, which requires that on farms, prison, there is always an atmosphere of tension, terror, anguish, etc. Its collaborators are placed strategically on these farms, prison, with the task of causing these critical situations to feed. Their deities are placed as representatives of their archon deities by geneticists and controllers. Whenever they place their lineages as prison farm controllers, they perform by mixing their pure DNA with that of genetically created races. Said lineages have a special coding in the DNA that makes them connect directly with the archon deities. Through their minds are antennas, recipients that obey the guidelines that the great hive mind sends them to the good development of the AR plan with Tico in the farm where the gene is located, which facilitates this filtering of information is incorporated into the DNA. Some components of these lineages, having crossed paths with some humans, slaves, have caused beings to be born, who also have this faculty of connect directly with this mind. Hive said humans suffer from mental disorders in most times since they hear voices and receive telepathic messages from these entities that call themselves gods, causing erratic acts and psychopathic most of the time. Said humans become portals, organics that act as puppets of these entities, causing chaos. Where do those who are converted go? In organic portals, in avatars. These entities have genealogy, ascendant of the lineages that were placed for farm control, prison. That is why the majority of serial killer psychopaths have powers for politics, for the leadership, are genetically prepared for the control of the slave population. There are several working groups within of the Archon Corporation are the system explorers and sniffers, solar panels that search all over the multiverse suitable places to create prison farms through a system, galaxy tracking technology, likely to contain planets suitable for future genetically modified slaves. If there is a probability of being able to create a prison farm trafficking ring, will create the right circumstances, suitable climate in that place for do it. Then there are the creators of the networks of prison farms, also called life planners, designers, life, or also cosmic gardeners. These scientists know perfectly well way to make galaxy spaces to harbor life. They plan it all when they have tracked and verified the right place to plant life, modified, send to the armies of explorers to go on site to the planets chosen. The ways to traveling to those selected points is two ways. If they are very far away, will track by measuring the points, active geomagnetic exoplanets, searching for the dimensional portals, natural of these locations. Also, they will track and examine said planets, to observe what kind of life forms they exist there that can be taken advantage of, and the danger that may exist in those places. If there are forms of intelligent life, of type 1, this is a civilization like the human but without being enslaved, take advantage of the natural resources of the planet where they are located. Then, contact groups will intervene and negotiators trying to fool the beings from those planets. If they do not get convinced, said inhabitants will go to anywhere else. They cannot under any circumstances forcibly break the free will of beings in an evolutionary state. If they do, could put down the business, Archon organization would intervene, forces of good unleashing a war and, stopping the vast majority of said group has already occurred on previous occasions. And they almost destroyed the organization. Archon had to be a long time to organize everything again. These entities, when they arrive at a planet that is in the training principle, takes advantage of the forms of life that are in it, and the geneticists set up their laboratories to begin the creation of the future. Slaves populate the planets, conquered with hybrid slave beings that are easily manipulated, or too smart to cause a mass flight of slaves, or too late not to understand the rules and guidelines to follow, or carry out work of all kinds. They will always place their hybrids as prison farm leaders, slave control. While the population process lasts, prison farms, there will always be a detachment of zone managers assigned on each planet to go organizing the control system, beliefs, religions, rituals, norms of conduct, militarization, etc. Farm preparation process. Prison and its slaves may vary, depending on the level of involvement and indoctrination. When they see that it is already everything prepared for the mental control of religious type and istic ritual, become a background through technology and other media are creating the idea of a almighty God who demands worship, ritual sacrifices, blood, suffering, miracles, fervor, and the power is passing of control of the farm to its lineages. Hybrids, when they see a danger of mass rebellion at the prison farm, they create a planetary catastrophe. They arrest, or they eliminate whoever reveals themselves, and they prescribe again, erasing the remains of that rebellion so that the slave continues immersed in it mentally without remembering his origin. Judah said, "Behold, the authorities, the archons, dwell upon us, then they are the ones who they will rule." Jesus replied, "It's you who will govern them, but only when you get rid of jealousy and take the protection from the light and you enter the nymph, nor to the bridal chamber is the Master Jesus, emphatic that we have power over archons, but also makes it clear that some human failures prevent the use of our power. The Greek word tones can be translated as jealousy or envy. The Gnostics considered that envy was the signature of the archons, like this, as the key human flaw that makes us vulnerable to their intrusion. Jesus came to free humanity enslaved by Archon Empire. He taught people to connecting with the original source was a specially modified sent hybrid to mystical mind to expand the thought of liberation, humanity through connection. Original the Archons and their collaborators, upon learning that this great being of light had incarnated in the planet, they did everything possible to eliminate it. As soon as they were born, they felt their presence and sent cultra assassins to eliminate all your life was being harassed and persecuted to prevent freed slaves. When they saw that he was a dangerous adversary, they caught him, with the help of organic portals, avatars of Archon. If he was murdered later, they changed their entire history and created a guilty gigantic Gregor that receive all the energy of worship of the human slaves, who in turn distribute that great energy with the Archon deities, placed him as a idol, a god, to prevent humanity will connect through its interior with original font and follow a savior instead. Jesus taught the opposite. He showed to humans how to empower themselves and break the chains of slavery. Archon, but these entities changed their entire message and placed a new layer of mental control over humanity. When you see the representation of Jesus crucified, the subconscious receives the message from these entities that warn of what if you reveal yourself to the murdered empire. Also the inner being, when he sees this threat, is put on alert and notifies the avatar of what these are doing, entities with all those sent from the light of the original source. Jesus notice many times to people about these entities and their collaborators who are infiltrated, because our fight is not against human beings but against principalities, against powers, against the forces of this dark world, against the spiritual forces of darkness, archons of evil in the space. Ephesians 6:12. Clearly here they are warning us of the battle we are fighting against these parasitic entities. Jehovah, he says that a stranger is blind and crazy, crazy that nevertheless has some divine powers, although he does not believe the world in which we live believes that what it does when opening the eyes of the Archangel F saw a great, unlimited amount of matter, and he came back arrogant saying, I am the one, I am God, and there is no other power apart from me. The reality of the Archons NHSE 24, 94 hours and 20 minutes. Jehovah were in Lillian, or that they carried out mind control in humanity to insert religion worship and ritual sacrifices for deities, Archon in the Gnostic texts and Apocrypha destroyed, and those they survived hidden from humanity. They talk about these entities that carry, enslaving us from the beginning, the times, the destruction of libraries like the one in Alexandria to the Middle Ages was for this reason, erase all this from the face of the earth, information so important for human slave, all this information, it was coming at dizzying speed, understanding both the techniques that use these entities as the methods and ways with which they have put us in this prison without even giving us account of this hidden reality, and overlapped with the fictitious reality that have built throughout all these millennia so stealthily. The Archons, they depend on humans to remain ignorant of their spiritual potential. Inherently I realized that through the connection with the original source too, through the soul was opening everything, this library of knowledge, we have it incorporated into our DNA and will be internals. Using soul fusion with DNA and the original source, we can access this great power that is ancestral knowledge. Everything around you contains information, you just have to look closely and decipher that knowledge. So important to evolve and get out of this matrix. Chapter 7, Activation of Energy Points. I went to the mountains with some friends, they are also in the process of awakening. From this prison farm I let myself go, by intuition, by the inner being that he called me to go to places surrounded by nature to carry out work, connection with Mother Earth and Source, original, and help promote the vibration of energy points, natural. All this information on how to help Mother Earth and access knowledge, higher interiors through the BM. It came suddenly one morning. I didn't know the why, even though I intuited it. I had to do it. We drove to the Pyrenees. Aragonesa, the lost mountain, was the place to which my interior was guiding me. No, it could be another place when there was little left to arrive. I received images, minds of the right place. Never before it had happened to me that way, intense. We arrived at the place and suddenly I knew the path I had to follow to get there. At the indicated point I felt strong. I was tired of climbing slopes and climbing some sections almost inaccessible due to pedestrians hiking. From time to time I had to wait for my friends who were a little tired of so much walking. We rest in one place, forest, where an energy was perceived special. I felt at that moment a great connection with Mother Earth, as if was fused with her. I perceived how my energy was recharging quickly, and I no longer felt the physical or tiredness or hunger and nothing. A great tributary of energy ran through my entire being, and I began to receive a flow of information automatically. My thoughts were rushing through my head, mind, and I had to tell my friends. I started to speak. I knew perfectly well what did I have to say. We are here to help Mother Earth to balance the energies that come from the heart, and your being collects by using vibrational energies, elevated, coming from the center of the universe, of the original source of the which all form of life arises. Energy has information packages with powerful codes that activate DNA, providing the necessary knowledge for the evolution and liberation of prison created by the enslavers, planetariums. And I began to visualize a ray of light that came down from the original source and came to where we were located, but that ray was dissipating and diverting us in a strange way, supported well the energetic point that I was visualizing. There was something that made me deviate. I quickly understood that we should help redirect this energy to be deposited in the right place. I told my friends that they will be placed in a circle, and we visualize The time that ray of light coming from the original source went down to where we were located, and how did we get there, the very center of Mother Earth, anchoring it at the indicated point. When we did it, I saw a big wave, expansive, enveloped the entire place, covering everything. At that moment we feel, the 5 of us who were there had a great satisfaction and a very strong feeling of gratitude mixed with love. Then some orbs appeared, beings of spherical shape that have worked to protect Mother Earth, are they, with great telluric energy, are populated by these entities that are called by some him. There are also elementals on the side opposite that they feed on electromagnetic emanations and energy of large concentrations of humans, both in mass meditations of groups as in shows, massive gatherings where people emanate strong mental vibrations and emotional. These orbs guided me to a point away from nature. There no one passed by. I saw like a stream of energy similar to the previous one went down. Up to that point, right next to it there was a stream. Water is very important, emanates a powerful telluric energy. Where there will be water, there will be a point nearby energy. This related information with the water, it came to me instantly. I read about these topics so as not to see myself influenced by external ideas. I let information flows through me, interior, and then contrasted it with related information I know is real, because everything coincides exactly. In most of the time, we went to every energy point that I was indicating. The interior carried by the intuition. We were collecting those energy points. When we were returning to the car, we met a fawn. The animal, seeing it, did not stay standing staring at each other for a instantly, and calmly he began to eat grass. We were amazed at that the animal showed no signs of fear or nervousness before our presence. At that moment came to me information that animals know who is a being of light, perceive the vibration of living beings, and they know who can be a dangerous enemy. When he carried out these works, connecting and realigning points, energy of the planet, I always receive help from the elemental beings that they live in nature, protectors of Mother Earth. These benevolent entities have been described by sensitivity, antiquity, like fairies, elves, gnomes, etc. Beings that live in places, natural cigars packed with energy, telluric. These beings are considered caregivers of nature. When they see someone that can help Mother Earth repair or reactivate points, energy, or nature chakras, they always appear to help those who we perceive these realities, interdimensional, who have this sensitivity. Chapter 8: The Matrix of Incarnation and Souls. When a person has the deteriorated physical body and abandons it, because its transit through the planet, the soul, its true presence, leaves this three-dimensional plane, accessing the matrix of souls. Matrix of souls is a barrier that they place the archon entities to prevent souls from escaping, and in that way recycle them into physical avatars and feed on its emanations, energy. As soon as you leave, they give you a electromagnetic filter or some kind of network that acts as a screen, holographic, so you can see what they then want the guardians of exit and entry of these dimensions. They give you a movie of your life and past lives. This is possible because they have the ability to take all the information that you have been collecting with your mental and energetic body of yours, experiences both in this life and in the previous ones, have files that can go extracting from each of the humans who access this dimensional plane, that also control that level, are the called Lords of Karma. Is a very large structure they have. These entities do it for food, spiritual energy of their deities and themselves. Also, if they fail in that filter, entrances and exits are punished under dimensional isolation penalty, are locked in what they call dimensional prisons, are the dark ones of the multiverse, where they remain for eons, locked away, isolated until permanent death, are self-consumed. This is devoured by themselves because lack of energy source, food. In their desperation for survive, they self-destruct. Well, when a being is caught in this web by these entities, and they pass the movie of his life and past lives, that many times it is a hologram that they have Prepared for everyone equally, changing in case someone is certain and given account of this deception will make you feel guilty of alleged errors committed, of murders committed in past lives, of facts that on many occasions not even he himself has really lived everything for, provoke that feeling of guilt, that makes the soul return again to, physically incarnate in this way, interfere with the free will of the human. They set the hook so that, by that way they are not breaking the law of free will and cannot be caught up. After this they will put it through a cycle, memory erase blocker which will be almost impossible for them to remember this deception. Some souls fed up with this manipulation rip this lock, they begin to remember through the avatar, physical everything that happened and notify the other souls sharing this, such important information others have, come voluntarily mocking the access control to this plane for, help those who are enslaved, escape, the beings of light who access the prison farms on a mission to help, free the greatest number of souls, trapped access through the physical incarnation go in groups, reduce so as not to raise suspicions, they all have an internal timer that, the time has come to activate, perform the chosen work. Some, they come to give important information for, personal liberation, others for, carry out humanitarian aid work or, to dismantle controller systems, religions, monetary policy etc. These beings, are perfectly prepared for carry out said work since always, they have and always will, although, physically destroy their authentic identity the soul will return, do it to these beings of light. Can you destroy them in any way anymore, that are permanently connected to, the original source know how to escape, the trap created by the Archons and, will guide the other sleeping souls to, come home. What better way to help, than to do it from within, just like, an antivirus to end evil, you must enter the affected area there. A series of entities that are part, of the dimension or corporation or also, called the Brotherhood give with ticks to, group of entities dedicated to, parasitize solar systems creating, farms prison market network of these, entities creating a large supply of, food for the Archon deities and, all the components of this brotherhood. There are several groups of entities with, different qualities, both physical and, different jobs assigned to each, group of these beings. The typology of these entities is the following: one of, energetic form. These entities are, pure energy, do not possess physical avatar, belong to parallel dimensions. An example of this are evil entities, called ghost spirits. Within the group of spirits or entities there is, hierarchies and degrees. In another group of, interdimensional entities are, called demons, who are workers, of the arch-hierarchs. There are several, hierarchies within that plane, dimensional. There are those who are warriors, others are portal guardians, dimensional ones like Metatron. There are those who are dedicated to creating points of, energy food extraction, dining rooms for these entities that, in turn, maybe they are connected to the hierarchies of these entities, for example in homes sited by, these entities or incorrectly called houses, enchanted in these places for dates. They create energy feeders like, households use entities, Archon dimension components for, create pockets of perpetual food. These entities are dedicated to searching for nuclei, family members or groups of people where, can create discord, create environments, stress, tension, fear, separation, hatred, and everything related to those vibrations that you like so much. First thing they will do is to quote one of the group members to create those situations. Will do it on a mental level, first for that victim to act in a hateful way for others, members of the environment, and they hooked him on drugs, alcohol, creating a dissociation of personality so that it is not conscious. What he does will be attached to him. They will infect so you don't think you are good or bad, so that it only acts as an automaton without feelings towards those around him. This being will become, in a psychopath, an abuser without scruples, will only think of emanating that vibration in the home. If the entities want to create a portal, dimensional, in the home, if they see that no, will have external impediments to doing so, they will direct it in a way unconscious for the victim until, get me to kill even those who surrounding these entities cause without having to do it directly, such a negative situation, creating a energy so dark that it serves as a key to open the door. They always act the same way when not be able to do it by breaking the free. Victims will what they do is leave the hook to bite. Parasitized, if the victim is weak and easily manipulated, will end doing what they tell you in the big, most of the wrongly named houses. Haunted, there is a record of acts ending in sadistic murders. These places are swarms of these entities, parasitic. They use terror to squeeze the energy of the inhabitants of these places to throw them out of those places. Clean these places, we have to close them. The portal created their search for the focus of the swarm and then eliminate those entities. This will have to be done by someone especially can see them, prepared to do this kind of job, someone sensitive who perceives. In addition, the spotlights or portals for confirm the detection of said foci infected. It is good to carry some vibration detection device, electromagnetic waves, or an animal trust like a dog or cat, or any other pet is not enough to say prayers or cast holy water. Bless the place that is not. It does nothing to these entities. The only thing what can end them is eliminate them with light, burn them, and the portal closure. After this you have to seal the place, connecting it to the original source. You must also perform this action with those affected who have been sighted by these entities. Remove entities, close focus, portal cleansing through light and connection with the original source so that do not return to the place. Sometimes victims of poltergeist cases in their homes have come to me to make them a house cleaning, and I almost always I have found that the causes of these phenomena are familiar from the victim, that the only thing they are looking for is draw attention to be released, to go to the light, return to the source original, and to give a message to the affected. In most cases, spirits, the people who are trapped between this dimension and the other. They seek help to free yourself from the hell of loneliness and the situation of danger, that in that dimension there are entities that they chase. These spirits that are lost torment them to fall into the deception of returning to the tunnel of light of the deceiver, archons of karma, and return to incarnate to be drained again. The reasons why the spirits that are trapped are the following: 1. When the person dies and leaves the body, meets those who try make him go through the tunnel of light, person refuses to pass and distrust escapes being lost, wandering through the places where I was used to physical life. 2. When the person dies unexpectedly, in an accident, suddenly left trapped in place and repeated like a movie what happened. 3. When the person commits suicide, comes back again and again to relieve what happened. They see nothing else there, his pain and suffering, thinks who is still alive, and doesn't listen to anyone nor anything that is around you. These 3 types of entities must be treat them in a special way to help them come to the light. We must use psychology a lot carefully in order not to scare them. In these cases, we must collect them to the original source. Call your relatives or trusted that have come to light so that it is not scare them, and thus help them cross through vibration. We know if it is really a family member or some entity of the Archon Corporation trying fool him. There are places for mentioned houses, castles, etc. that being in places charged with geomagnetic energy, or at the intersections of ley lines, take advantage of these entities to use them of energy stores, food, energetic. Do not think that the wrongly named houses haunted, they remain that way like this. So these Archon entities have it everything very well planned. And if it happens something, is not by chance but because they do it, have provoked to profit. 2. Of semi-energetic form are entities that can alter your physical form, go from a physically 3D state to an energetic state. Ids materialize. Well, they can do it by technology or with mental power. In this group are all the entities, aliens, and certain robots, biological gray insect JDDES, Nordic reptilians, the so-called big foot, etc. This group of entities also have various hierarchies. Biological robots, like the gray ones for example, have functions of carrying out work, kidnapping, surgical operations, all kinds in kidnapped operations, location tracking and inspection, dangerous, sometimes use them as avatars for surveillance work and access to conflictive planets or dangerous areas. 3. Physically dense beings, third dimension, these are the ones who are placed as controllers at the top of the pyramid of power on the planets, prison farms controlling elites of the slaves or livestock of these prison farms. These entities have how I work to create situations for may the prison farms never stop to emanate the nourishing energy of their archon deities, and also build bases to house their hierarchs and zone bosses, underground bases like, for example, the Sweet Area 5152, the Antarctica, etc. will help reinforce the dome and grill to prevent the escape of slaves, as well as the systems of mind control, politics, religion, entertainment for the population, deterioration of health to avoid the connection of body, mind, spirit and soul, humanity, blocking the inner power of the slaves, atrophying the gland pineal. These entities are created genetically with massive and originating of their hierarchies, so that there is a strong family connection of your ancestors, and avoid internal rebellions. If they fail in their task of controlling the farm, are eliminated along with the slaves. It is for this reason that they are so committed to implementing new laws, control taxes, etc. In the world population, this corporation or brotherhood work in unison, are one hive mind. Everyone is connected, both mentally and internally. No one works for free. If someone did, he would be punished with death. Human judicial system is based on the control system and laws. These entities, their collaborators, components of the power elite, charged to enforce the laws that are placed in prison farms for their hierarchs, chief jailers, who are dedicated to implement these rules and punishments. In all planet systems, multiverse prison, depending on the vibrational level of the planet, so will be the rules, laws and control systems. If there have been many rebellions on a planet, they will implement strong laws, punishments and restrictions to prevent further rebellions of slaves. They also reset EOS to avoid that such rebellions occur again, and lull the prisoners even more to sleep. Cutting and blocking the DNA of affected is what they did this last time on the planet after the flood. They performed a reset and returned to repopulate the planet with new models of genetically modified slaves, with the inner faculties strongly blocked, having escaped of catastrophes, and reset. Some groups of slaves returned to the surface of the planet and mixed with those who were blocked from being born. Some humans with certain faculties activated by seeing such a crossing, controllers put controls, birth rate to find and monitor, close to those who are semi-activated. Proof of this are the records of birth and collection of samples, blood and DNA of all of us who are born in the planet. The excuse they make is that they need to know the details of the newborns born to register them. Civil is also to have all the slaves marked with document numbers, national identity passports, social security, and prevent some hidden or free from control. Planetary said numbering that we have placed is stored just like the DNA of each of the humans and animals of the planet on a computer central located in the control base of Switzerland, which in turn is connected with the other computers in each country of the planet and control satellites that are over our heads. Gentlemen type spy satellites. Black also have this information of each of the inhabitants of the planet from before the flood, but this control does not end here. The moon, it is another monitoring center where they are. All our personal data is another control center. From there they control also our emotions and level, vibrational, among many other things. In addition, the moon is connected in turn with Saturn. Saturn is the emitting center, low vibration of this galaxy. Rings were built to cast, like a record player, a frequency that expands through this galaxy, affecting the prison farms and their inhabitants always. They place artificial satellites as receiving antennas right next to each prison planet. These satellites' antennas, they receive the vibration and expand it to their around making the planet farm. Prison absorbs it and its inhabitants, this way no one escapes its influence, living beings being 90% water, they absorb these frequencies and remain embedded in their cells, affecting your entire environment, health, mood, pineal gland, brain waves. Then they begin to oscillate, unnatural way. They are not in tune with natural vibration of the planet and the cosmos. This affects the way of being of the affected artificial satellites. They also reinforce the barrier, electromagnetic energy that surrounds the planet, to prevent slaves from escaping, both physically and spiritually. The moon was placed on the planet in which, last planetary reset, Chapter 9 Ritual Symbology Portals, Dimensional, I began to understand how they use their symbols to send food to your archon deities, how they take advantage of energy of the people in a multitude of events, through the fearful symbols that connect directly with these entities. They are energy keys. If that matters to you, you add the pain, fear, blood, hate vibrations that these entities love, it will be much more effective. The collaborators of the archons, ritualist priests, know where perform said blood rituals and who are the best victims for offer them to their deities in rituals. They are made with children because the amount adrenaline in the blood is higher and emotions are more intense, purer in. If children are babies, the better for them, because the emotions will be true and extreme. There are several types of rituals. Those of animals are dedicated to lower ranking entities, such as example bullfights and everything, type of celebrations that have common denominator of sacrificing animals. This is why the elite supports these celebrations where the animal slaughter, but if they cancel a celebration such as the bull of the Vega in Spain, they will replace it with another. Sometimes they don't care, since there are millions of rituals like this all over the planet. Then there are the rituals dedicated to high-ranking deities are sacrificed there. People, these rituals are performed today, nowadays in secret places. They are taken, carried out by experienced priests and who are in full mental connection with these entities. In these ceremonies the attendees drink the blood of the victims to enter full contact with their deities, and because genetically they are connected, they need it apart from a drug, food for them. They also practice cannibalism, these elitists. The ceremony, ritual for these entities is very important because it connects directly with them. The ceremonies and cults are keys to open the portals, dimensions that give them access to these entities, to this dimensional plane. Equally important for this are the symbols and numerology are like codes. Access keys for entry and exit are such as passwords or access codes. A computer, according to the password you use, you will open one door or another. The rituals are performed secretly because they need intimacy with their deities. For them is something respectful, intimate, and sacred. Another way to perform rituals is with wars, attacks, even with natural disasters that create at specific points, with technology with hard antennas that emit vibrational frequencies, creating earthquakes and volcano eruptions. Take advantage of solar emissions to direct them to certain strategic points, creating chaos, death, terror in said geographical areas, but also carry out these disasters in natural quotes, to lower vibration in areas that are in danger of massive flight. Slaves, there are geographical areas that they have natural dimensional portals, either by crossing ley lines, planet candles loaded with energy, telluric or technologically created artificially in the past, because carried out at these points. Simple because said energy vibration, in addition to reinforcing these portals, serve as food for entities, archon, that inhabit parallel mentions connected to these portals. There are geographical areas that are always in war, conflict, especially in the Middle Eastern countries, Jerusalem, Syria, Iraq, Iranian, Africa, to name a few. The collaborators of the deities, archon, on this planet are constantly conducting experiments of all kinds to reinforce control and security at prison farm, perform maintenance tests on the technological control devices, such as the dome that surrounds the planet. For this they launch missiles, plasma and atomic to verify that, withstand impacts and to test the Project Blue holographic display, wing. That's why you see them in some places, images in the sky of all kinds is not, who wish to destroy the dome to escape. If they did they would be punished by the prison farm controllers. Sometimes they also open portals, interdimensional to give access and exit to his controlling brothers and scientists. The dome also has several doors that can be opened or closed, and plasma technology. When creating planets farms prison, controllers place their leaders of group of hybrid drivers, charge of the slaves with the laws and guidelines to follow. Hybrids camouflaged in prison, they do the job of jailers. If not, they do the control job well. Totalitarian through technologies and orders received by their hierarchs will be punished in one way or another. If not, prevent large numbers of animals from escaping. Enslaved beings will be eliminated through catastrophes and reset of the prison farms. This has already happened in previous times when they have seen that a large number of people were released, slaves and their representatives in the planet. They could not avoid it. What they did is give them an ultimatum and destroy everything to start again from scratch. These joint controlling entities, with the entire group of entities that they work for the good maintenance of prison farms, have a bank, data and DNA of all beings that they live in prison farms. They do is use it to repopulate the planet if they see it suitable, easily manipulable to those beings who are rebellious and strong. Will keep them down, study of all kinds to see what is that has failed them in the system, creation of slave races, and to create hybrid entities that serve their authentic armies. Powerful warriors who use them to create hybridization, is that they will be part of their collaborators, controllers and bosses of zone. The prison planets have quarterly meetings with your descendants in charge of surveillance of food suppliers, archon deities. All techniques that drivers use prison farms are the same. They cannot vary in forms and methods without first notify, because if something went wrong they would be eliminated and replaced by others in their place. At the beginning of creating farms and control communities must create the necessary environments of chaos and destruction, as well as separation of humans by race, countries, languages, religions, laws and policies, to avoid the flight and mass mutinies of the slaves within religious movements. Primitives must introduce the ritual blood sacrifices, maintain proper energy drainage, anchored in certain places on the planet. These anchored places will serve as energy storage tanks for the deities and hierarchs. These deposits are located at points, powerful energy sources that they use as extra-dimensional portals that connect with the archon deities. When they access this physical reality after a ritual sacrifice, the first thing they do is to feed on human energy, or non-human animals slaughtered after access. Energy from deposits, to supply every prison galaxy, has a group of archon deities that they are dedicated to draining the energies of the prison planets that make up these deities. In turn are connected to the other entities, and deities are distributed food by cosmic zones. In every galaxy or prison there may be from one archon deity to several, controlling the drain of energy from the prison planets. The number of deities varies depending on the number of farms there is in every galaxy. In this system plot where we are located, for example, there are three is the divine triad, as her collaborators call her the Saint Trinity. They also call it 13. In this planet is very important when it comes to perform rituals and worship. 3 ritualized correctly opens them a portal directly to these entities, by which numerology is fed. It is very important for these entities, has the power to act as keys, to access those high dimensions. Where are these beings located? Archons. There are several entities in the scale of power AR with Tico that respond to certain rituals and symbol key. All these extra entities, dimensional, respond to rituals, numeric symbols of mantras and prayers, invocations. When they believe planets farm prison, controllers place their leaders of group of hybrid drivers, charge of slaves with the laws and guidelines, to follow, hybrids camouflaged in prison, they do the job of jailers if not, they do the control job well, totalitarian through technologies and orders received by their hierarchs will be, punished in one way or another if not, prevent large numbers of animals from escaping, enslaved beings will be eliminated, through catastrophes and reset of the prison farms. This has already happened in previous times when they have seen that a large number of people were released, slaves and their representatives in the planet. They could not avoid it. What they did is give them an ultimatum and destroy everything to start again from scratch. These joint controlling entities, with the entire group of entities that they work for the good maintenance of prison farms, have a bank, data and DNA of all beings that they live in prison farms. They do is use it to repopulate the planet if they see it adequately and easily manipulable. To those beings who are rebellious and strong will keep them under study, all kinds, to see what has happened to them, failed creation system, slave races, and to create entities, hybrids that serve their armies. Authentic powerful warriors who used to create hybridization is that will be part of its collaborators, controllers, and zone heads of the prison planets have meetings quarterly with their descendants, supplier surveillance officers, of food for the deities. Chest of all the techniques used by prison farm controllers are, they cannot vary in the forms and methods without prior notice, since, if something went wrong they would be eliminated and replaced by others in their place. Principle of creating farms and control communities must create the necessary environments of chaos and destruction, as well as separation of humans by race, countries, languages, religions, laws, and policies to avoid the flight and mass mutinies of the slaves. Within religious movements, primitives must introduce the ritual blood sacrifices, maintain proper energy drainage, anchored in certain places on the planet. These anchored places will serve as energy storage tanks for the deities and hierarchs. These deposits are located at points, powerful energy sources that they use as extra-dimensional portals that connect with the archon deities. When they access this physical reality after a ritual sacrifice, the first thing they do is to feed on human energy, or non-human animals slaughtered after access energy from deposits, to supply every prison galaxy, has a group of archon deities that they are dedicated to draining the energies of the prison planets that make up. These deities in turn are connected to the other entities, and deities are distributed food by cosmic zones in each prison galaxy. There may be from a archon deity up to several controlling the draining of energy from the planet's prison. The number of deities varies according to him and farms that are in each galaxy in this solar system where we are located. For example, there are 3 ES, the divine triad as its people call it, collaborators, the Holy Trinity too, they call it 13 on this planet. It's very important when carrying out the rituals and worship. The ritualized 3 correctly opens a portal directly to these entities, by which feed. Numerology is very important for these entities, is the power to act as keys to access to those high dimensions where they are located. In these archon beings there are several entities on the scale of power AR with ethics that respond to certain rituals and key symbols. All these entities, extra-dimensional ones, respond to the numerical rituals of symbols, mantras, and prayers. Invocations, disturbed behavior of archons and other collaborators of these entities can be seen reflected in the way with which they act in this 3D reality. For example, when someone, it is quoted by one of these entities, the first thing that happens is, then your usual way of thinking, gradually the entity is put under pressure, he transfers his thoughts, dark and predatory, to the victim, becomes a lonely apathetic being, bad-tempered, he behaves like predator that is attached little to. Shortly the predator will program him, will mentally place thoughts, obsessives will talk to you constantly, will make you see things that do not exist, I don't know, will show to the victim when he is unprotected and in altered states of conscience, causing fear, confusion, stress, pleasant feelings. For the predator, the entity, parasite will isolate the victim to prevent being helped by someone, expel it. When a victim is possessed by one of these entities, you will feel like, slowly his emotional part or soul leaves. Scrolling feels like you see everything, from the deepest and darkest depths of a well. The soul of the victim passes into background as he realizes that there is something else occupying your physical avatar. If you feel an aggressive danger of snatch, your avatar will be activated, causing the destruction of both. The avatar of the parasitic entity is which is commonly called combustion, spontaneous. To avoid this destruction, the entity will use deception, both of the avatar as of the soul, becoming pass for someone kind and not raise suspicions. Will always act under the approval of the victim by sending him subliminal messages to your mind not to break free. Will whatever something chosen by the victim is why that when a dooming or exorcism the entity, he usually says that the person left him enter that opened the door is. So when should you inform the person and soul of the victim of what is really happening? For this way expel the entity. These entities are liars, even hypnotics. To achieve their goal will everything possible to hypnotize the victim, are first hooked on the victim's sexual points, hypersexualized to feed on that energy so powerful for them. They will then be attached to the other energy points of the body, until you get hooked to the point located in the pineal gland, in the center of the brain. Remote control and mind merge with him, in addition to cancel it and not connect again with your soul. To disconnect it even more of reality will make the victim seek maximum mental excitement, making you dependent on drugs, hallucinogens, and all kinds of external stimulants that do release energy and brain waves. How much do you like this type of entities? In the face of the danger of being expelled by the soul of the avatar, the entity, sometimes it will cause the victim to choose the ways of suicide. This is done sending you vibrations and thoughts of hate, danger, fear, anguish, depression, but above all of guilt, so that the victim feels alone and helpless. Being in the process of isolation caused by the entity, will not see solution to the problem and will also be being constantly bombarded by the thoughts of the predator. His soul will not be able to intervene unless the avatar requested it, but as in that status the avatar is blinded spiritually, it would be very difficult for the soul will help him. That is why he needs someone expert to free it. These entities vibrate at a very high speed, very dense ground to natural vibration of the planet and the original source. They distort and cannot hold much in places where this natural vibration of the cosmos abounds. That is why they have modified the vibration of the planet and this solar system with technology, electromagnetic sound waves, imperceptible to the human ear, so that the entities and their collaborators can resist the waves. Electromagnetic waves of the planet have developed a vast network of waves, low frequency on the planet, through the antennae and those that females. Aluminum acts as a conductor of said electromagnetic vibrations. That is why, spread through fumigation to that we aspirate it, and it is introduced into the DNA and bloodstream. When controllers take command of the prison farm, planets are given to them, the rules and laws to their descendants, responsible for taking control over the enslaved races. They are laws that are also being implemented in all the prison farms of the multiverse. In all prisons, place their standards of conduct with their corresponding punishments to those who fail to comply. Are the Anunnaki jailers, who dictate the harsh laws, so that there is totalitarian control in the prisons. When they see massive uprising in these prison farms, a global catastrophe, forces are sent, or armies, to stop the rebels, and everything resets again, erasing the memory of those survive and erase the evidence. Physically, there are archaeological remains of said battles and rebellions throughout the planet. You just have to investigate to discover this remote past. The punishment of the gods controlling their lineages, placed in prison farms, like those in charge of keeping the prisoners, preventing them from escaping, pack is to let them die alongside the rebels in the reset process, planetary. That is why the elites, they are so persistent in control, totalitarian of humanity, the so-called, for them, worldwide. This is why they have implemented so many methods of totalitarian control. They know that if they fail at their job they will be punished under penalty of death. Disguise all this past like fables or legends, fictitious of the ancients, but if you give yourself count and you are a good observer, you will discover that all this is real, one of physical evidence of delivery. These rules or laws to the leaders, collaborators of these entities of the Archon Corporation is the code, Hammurabi. It comes from ancient Mesopotamia and was carved from a basalt block of almost 250 meters high. Initially he received shelter in the temple, from Sipan, currently Iraq, then traveled, until now, Jose is in Iran and, since the beginning of the 20th century rests, in the Louvre Museum in Paris, which is the Code of Hammurabi, Luke, and in the Atlas of You think it is from 1375, the Code of Hammurabi is one of the older and better sets of laws, preserved that their norms exist, based on the application of the law of Talion, are carved in stone and in their set are considered as the prelude to some legal concepts. Modern laws of the Code, Hammurabi, were of divine origin and immutable, were fundamental rules, written to regulate the daily life of the Mesopotamian peoples and not subject to change nor on the part of the king himself. Code of Hammurabi takes its name from monarch of the same name who promoted his elaboration, is engraved on a stele from Dior and is at the top of which Hammurabi himself is represented, next to the sun god of Mesopotamia Lamas. The laws are written below in cuneiform characters. Here God, when not the most high king of the student here, and the divine in Lil Sur of heaven and earth that prescribes the destinies of the country granted to the divine Marduk, firstborn of the god, be the category of Enlil, sovereign of everything, the people, and magnified him among the sons when they imposed on Babylon their sublime name and made it the most powerful of the four quadrants, when in their midst they assured Marduk a kingdom eternal with foundations as solid as the of heaven and earth. In those days to know, and the divine Enlil also to my camera, I saw a devout and respectful prince, God, so that I could show equity to the country, so that I could destroy the evil, and at the beginning so that the arrogant does not oppress the weak, so that I as the divine would never appear on the blackheads and illuminate the land to promote well-being of the people. They imposed the name on me. I am Love AP, the chosen shepherd of the divine Enlil, the accumulator of abundance and opulence, in short, as far as it concerns nor for during, and is a devoted caretaker of the king's decor, efficient that has restored wounded in its place and purified the ritual of Span, hurricane of the four quadrants, exalts the name of Babylon, the delight of the heart of Marduk his lord, the one who comes daily to serve the agile, the royal seed generated by the divine without or enricher, humble the fervent one who contributed the abundance to X walnut, the prudent king, obedient to the divine you call the powerful, that has consolidated the foundations of itself, for him who has clothed himself with luxuriance, the upper chapel of finds, the one who has fact of raising an excellent temple, similar to the abode of heaven, compassionate warrior with spear, Barkam renovator for the divine, you call your ally Mr. Revitalizer, of Uruk the water supplier of abundance to his people who have raised the top of Lena, he who has accumulated abundance for Numi, divine is the protector of the country who has gathered together the scattered people of Ent, without him who has filled the earth with abundance, temple of the soul, the dragon of kings, the favorite brother of the divine Shabab, to the consolidator of the foundations of X, the one who has surrounded with an aura, resplendent MT super index 1, Ursa the faithful celebrant of the Solemns, rites of Utar the administrator of the temple horse to Kalamalamaya, capture of enemies to whom he was his companion, granted the achievement of his wishes, he exalts Dor de Tut, he who has increased immensely throughout the month, the fierce buffalo that gores the enemies, the favorite of Tutu, the joy in itself for the devotee who does not, abandons his duties towards the Chosen One, God of kings superior to others, kings the insightful sage the enlarger of, the crops of Bilbao the one that filled the, threads for the divine hours he, bold the Lord deserving of the scepter and the, crowns him who made perfect the wise, goddess Mom the designer of the plans, Cheese the food supplier, pure of the divine Nidus the prudent, perfect he who provided pasture and, troughs flatter you if you exercise the, provided the great offerings to Lenin or, the capper of enemies the favorite of, tell it one who fulfills the oracles of, Zug to the one who gladdens the heart of Tar, pure prince whose prayers the, divine fairy who will order to appease the, heart of the divine. Adapt the warrior. Continuous provider of what is due, in him that of the Gal the life-giving king of, Abab the temple organizer Emma the, irresistible prince of kings in the, war the one who donated his life to the most tired, Peer the one who is fed up with water German Slam the, wise is the good treasurer who achieved the, depths of wisdom, I protect the inhabitants of Mal Gomez, catastrophe the foundations of their houses, who in abundance decreed for the, divine Ea and the divine Danda in one, magna of his kingdom offerings, eternally pure the first among, kings the subjector of the peoples of the, Euphrates by order of the divine Dagon, his creator who took pity on the, inhabitants of the sea and of Tuchul, pious prince who made the, face of the divine dispatch the one who, prepared holy banquets to the divine Nor, the savior of his people is born in the, difficulty the one who consolidated his, foundations in the middle of Babylon in peace, the shepherd of the people whose works are to her liking the one who assured the, presence of being in it the most in the, center here the law programmer, immutable the leader of the people, restorer of its protective virtue to the, city of blue the muffler, rebels the king who in the month of, Nineveh proclaimed the titles of the divine, be the pious praying before the great, gods the descendant of his mule, powerful heir of Yesmumbai and the, eternal seed of royalty the king, mighty son of Babylon that makes, dawn the light over the country of, Sumerian cat king subduer of the four, quadrants the protected from being when, Marduk sent me to govern the people, teach the country the right path I did, of the truth and fairness of the matter more, important I take care of the well-being of the, town in those days, chapter 10 how to create groups of, slave races on farm planets, prison began to come to me after doing the, connection with the original source a whole, large amount of information that, coincided with information that after having received it internally, I found it in books and then on the internet, and everything matches, it's like a big puzzle, that I have been rebuilding little by little. I know, that this information is real because I, resonates and coincides with what was found, subsequently I am not a contactee, by aliens, or by any, species of beings of light but this, information that comes to me is deposited, inside me in my soul and that also, comes out of the DNA after unlocking it, visualizations and especially through, connection with source, the information that came to me was, next when geneticists created, in the mothership laboratories, of the group in charge of the system, solar to human farm slave, prison called Earth as is customary, in all the newly prison farms, created were grouping the future, energy food generators, archon deities in towns, closed and controlled by armies, of Anunnaki vigilantes to prevent, rebellions mass slave escapes, etc. were creating groups of, slaves by modified countries. Genetically with the properties, necessary according to the climate of the areas, assigned in each country placed a, area manager geneticists are, experts in this work have strains of, DNA from different cosmic races that have, been improving to quickly achieve, create the desired model so that, survive according to their characteristics. First slave human group was black since it was the area of Africa, first slave settlement created, by geneticists and the extreme climate, hardness at high temperatures, it was very extreme for light skin, black skin is especially, designed for these types of temperatures, to withstand the elements of the climate, arid this hominid was also designed, to perform extreme physical efforts, they are stronger, They have greater density, bone, and great muscle power. Those hominids with white skin and yellow are specially prepared to withstand cold climates. They were placed in mountainous and cold areas, extreme mixes of black and white furs, red, brown, etc. are specially prepared for both climates. Are hybridizations carried out by geneticists. Animals too were genetically created from other species from other locations. They were designing the prison farm to be able to coexist with human races, slaves, and who were not exterminated quickly. When the student explorers arrived, who observed that the planet was populated by primitive animal species, very dangerous for the human slave, geneticists ordered that they will catch a specimen of each animal for perform genetic studies and hybridizations to create less races, dangerous for the hominid slave. After this they annihilated the animals that were not needed for the project. Many were arrested and taken to the laboratory ships. Others escaped and hid for later to be annihilated by the first groups of primitive humans. Vestiges of this exist in archaeological finds found by private archaeologists, but these findings are hidden or destroyed by controllers to hide this reality. Started the project members of the surveillance groups and control here. They noticed the beauty of women, human slaves. There are several races within the group of student who is not actually called. None here is a name that humans, slaves they put to these groups of beings in a here means those who of the heaven to earth descended and gave a Danuna has or Danuna means those of the royal blood is given by some hybrids that geneticists placed Anunnaki at the top of the pyramid. Prison farm control. The elites, the group involved in surveillance and breed control, are of various breeds. There are the Orioles that are a race, report Ileana, are fearsome beings and of great physical and mental power, are not interested by humans in the field. Sexual, there may be some exception, but they are mostly carnivores. That is, what they like about human slaves is flesh and blood. And then there are the reptilian hybrids, half human like humanoids, white but taller than about 3. Very strong, athletic, meters tall, physically and intelligent with great mental power. These beings have scales, reptile, but they are almost imperceptible. If you don't get closer you won't see them. Ability besides shape-shifting, these components of security and slave control were above of the Orioles, and other races were the security chiefs, zone chiefs. They were of this breed, the so-called Satan in what hierarchy and boss. Geneticist was of half hybrid race, half amphibious and humanoid. Reptile too. It will be a change the way it could happen from a aspect to another, apart from the fact that modified certain parts of DNA to improve physical and mental qualities. The latter was also done with some close friends of your team members, trustworthy, in which I was disgusted to perform, always the same model of humanoid with locked and unlocked capabilities, autonomy of reasoning. So, behind the council of hierarchs, life planners decided to create a humanoid with DNA strands fully activated and without locks. For this he used a type clone. White worked on his DNA and took him to his special laboratory area to observe your behavior, to the days of the study in which it was impressed. This new design was very intelligent. He also had powers, mental you and the thought of any being regardless of race, being that was speaking telepathically with whatever being you decided to create, a female for this humanoid, someone that it was of the same species as could procreate. I wanted to see if it was possible to naturally inherit those, both physical and mental qualities and spiritual. More than 2 years passed and the humans activated. They already had children. They were a family in which he was proud of his creation, taught them all the secrets of yours and the vibrational energy world, spiritual, how to use energy and vibration to heal cells, how create even through technology, genetic beings in laboratories. Everything was going fine until your driver, step-brother-in-law, realized what he was doing. They arrested AENC and they brought before their father, king of the student here, the advice of designers, life master geneticists, to give explanations for giving autonomy and knowledge slaves to cattle to the main food source of their hierarchies and deities, in which he was forced to block the DNA of its creation and to take them out of the central laboratory where were living, but in which he placed a timer in the DNA of its creatures, knowing the importance of vibrations and photons from the central sun, the center of the galaxy that once aligned with the other galaxies, and in turn with the original source, does let the DNA absorb it and unlock it. Naturally he placed it knowing that sooner or later they would activate again, their children. He released him in the middle of the town's prison or prison camps, that it was not the same, they were controlled, they continually did not have the freedom to, before. They also felt harassed by others prisoners, and on more than one occasion they had confrontations and discussions with other prisoners, in which he ordered secret to trusted guards and zone chiefs to protect their children. Meanwhile, some of the guards had intimate relationships with some of the slaves and had hidden children. Fruit of those relationships were born the so-called NE. Peelings were taller and stronger physically than normal humans. In addition, the components of the group of you began to instruct groups of humans on different arts and secrets that were not allowed no human slaves, so as not to group components be detected. From Enki they used portals, dimensional, to access the planet. In the Book of Enoch says that they went down to the land by Mount Hermon, in that there is a dimensional portal. Important who rebelled were surprised by the components of the controlling group. After this, who they couldn't escape from the group, Typhoon captured and locked in dimensional prisons. These prisons, they describe them in the Book of Enoch as places of eternal punishment for this side. Rebels were later called angels. Fallen drivers always twist history, placing those who rebel or leave the corporation as evil beings and represent them with repulsive ways. For humans, the drivers end up hating them. Experts in handling and falsehood will place the good as bad, and vice versa. The corporation placed human hybrid slaves in jobs, village leadership, and managers of the priest rituals that they would carry, perform the ceremonies. Groups of human slaves had been instructed by the designers of religious cults to make offerings, worship the Archon deities, as well as also to the zone heads and others, senior leaders of the Anunnaki group of. From time to time the slaves will be forced to make sacrifices, blood for the deities. At the beginning, prepared animals were sacrificed, especially for said rituals, animals that created others, civilizations and modifications, genetics much more sensitive to pain, that emanated much more energy, vibrational and mental, when sacrificed. But then the Sor hierarchists today, they said goodbye, that from time to time, they gave humans to eat, to drink their blood, and that's how humans did it. Slaves at first humans did not, they wanted to hand over their own blood sacrifices, but the Orioles, the dragons, used fear first, threats and physical punishment, make them obey later with the authorization from their superiors, placed vibration technology antennas such as that exist today, similar to the hard but more powerful antennas for make the humans weak and not to provoke riots, so that they obeyed without question. There are statues, ancient and stone engravings, show this remote past where you are, entities inhabited the planet to instruct the first inhabitants. Humans always do it when they believe the prison planets live among the slaves, to instruct them and create the rules of conduct for the entire species. Slave, then they separate little by little, leaving their representatives in the planet, its descendants created genetically with higher DNA index, themselves to be controlled more easily and maintain kinship and stronger connection. That's why the elites, rulers of the planet, feel superior due to the genetic inheritance of their gods. Dimensional portals, when the collaborators of the Archon deities anchored several dimensional portals on the planet, these places coincide with points, important energetic places where cross the so-called ley lines, candles, telluric waves that travel the planet. These places were also sealed by these entities through religious cult buildings, millions are concentrated in those places, of faithful to emanate the energy that, require the archon deities and all, the components of the corporation that, dedicated to squeezing solar systems, creating prison farms. There are several, energy points that are dedicated to, some entities according to their hierarchical level. According to their feeding range and others, like dimensional portals, exclusively to travel through, dimensions drainage points, more powerful energy and that are, exclusively used as a source of, food are located in countries where, there are always war conflicts, they are zones, permanent war. Jerusalem and the Golden Dome or Dome of, the Rock was from this rock that Muhammad, accompanied by Archangel Gabriel, ascended to the heavens and met, alas, they are telling us clearly one, of the senior officials of Lil Gabriel, brainwasher through, of the establishment of religions, took to the mothership when it was over, his mission of mind control to the humans through religion. This rock, according to Jewish tradition, Abraham was going to sacrifice these entities to his son Isaac, and also there, Jacob saw the staircase that led to the heaven, access to the dimension of these parasitic entities. Other traditions, Jews even say it's the rock, around which the world was created. Judaism also considers it the cornerstone of the Temple of Jerusalem. Said rock is a dimensional portal. This ancient rock is Mount Mara, and where Abraham was about to sacrifice his son Isaac, and where 1,000 years before, Jesus Christ King Solomon erected the first temple. This point is very important for these entities is the center of all dimensional portals of the planet, is from where they began to reinforce the network, worship, mind control and religions all over the planet. Here, they mix religious fervor and armed conflicts. Food assured, today there are 22 points at war, all over the planet, places that do not stop, to emanate the vibration of death, pain, fear, where these entities more food, vibrational collects. In addition to these, places have suction portals, energy based on worship, religious, the points where there are only religious worship without conflict. Wars are used for food and travel, dimensional for these entities. The following points are dedicated to this hierarchical entity of the dimension of the so-called demons, who are guardians and warriors of the astral matrix, represented on many occasions as the Black Virgin. There are many more others, dedicated to other hierarchical entities, but I will focus on the most important ones, of the planet: Montserrat, Spain; Fatima, Portugal; Lourdes, France; Weapon, Northern Ireland and Attack, Switzerland; High Team, Germany; Czechia, Poland; Medjugorje, Bosnia and Herzegovina, to make more realistic and, in quotes, holy these places, and anchor these pilgrimage points and worship of this entity. They performed the montage of the Marian apparitions. These appearances are made by the social engineers and controllers, the prison farm for those who, dedicated to building suction points, energy for their hierarchies. All this framework is much more complex than what do you believe within the corporation. Archon, there are different beings and entities, working in various departments, some creating worship movements and religions, others creating ways of life modified to provide the food that their deities require and themselves. Others are explorers in search for suitable planets to create it, prison farms and so on. Is how the companies of the planet are a reflection of what happens here. As it's up, it's down. You must understand that nothing that it happens fortuitously, the result of chance. These entities act in unison only, the hive mind, and they only look for food. Energetically and physically, we are in a prison farm. The portals are used for various functions such as food and access and exit from this reality to others. Dimensional realities are also natural portals or vortices, and created with artificial technology. Artificial portals are those that they manufacture with technology such as the Seine, which is located in Switzerland nearby, of the border with France, between commune of St. James Powell and in the department of Aisne, and the commune of Mailing in the canton of Geneva. In the underground base of the Seine have a dimensional portal that connects directly with the archon deities. This portal is also dedicated, especially if you see the boat going, nicknamed the Destroyer of Worlds, Ferocity, and because in past times it was, who was dedicated to commanding the attack armies to destroy groups, rebels, then the human survivors of these wars were written and, counting passing from generation to generation, generation said battles and reset eos, of the planet changing certain data to, because of the passing of the years and remaining, all like fables and legends. Furthermore, it should be said that the components of the Chest Corporation, controllers placed in positions important in the media, communication and information filtration, hide important data and delete evidence that may give clues to this, so important past of the humanity in the entrances and exits of the dimensional portals are guardians. There are several groups of guardians or controllers. The positive ones, they are located in natural portals that have not been occupied by Archon Corporation controllers. These guardians of light are there to prevent the dark ones from accessing these places to offer them to their Archon deities. There are portals that were occupied by guardians of the Dark Corporation after several battles in ancient times to, staying with said portals made the working priests of the dark ritual blood sacrifices in these places to attract Archon deities and expel the guardians of light. There are guardians of the light of dimensional portals, physically embodied between humanity who are watching out for, perform ritual blood sacrifices in these locations to prevent the Dark Ones steal these places. Chapter 11, How Things Are Perceived, Parasitic Entities and How They Act. Everything is vibration. The vibration of each being is like a fingerprint. Nobody has the same fingerprint, that no one has the same vibration among interdimensional beings. Recognize through vibration. Be next to a person, you can perceive the vibration of that person. Surely it has happened to more than one of us, that by being next to someone you have perceived a bad feeling that did not, I hope it turns you back, those sensations, the perception, extrasensory of the fields, vibrations of living beings and places the people mentioned have, a special vibration is like a double radio signal, like a radio station, which has interference from various signals, is a distortion that goes from one vibration to another, is like a sound, very low frequency bass. I feel that way. Apart from seeing these parasitic entities also, I feel your vibration, and the feeling that have these entities is out. Parasitic entities, places and people is like a exorcism, but not in the way we show religions in movies, etc. You should never use sentences or man 3 or something related to it, religious, since it is a deception devised by the Archon entities to give you more strength and veracity to the systems. Religious mind control created by these same entities to keep us enslaved and reinforce said control. Mental, why they perform this theater. What is the objective? The objective is to believe humanity that the only way to expel these evil entities, called demons, is through the religions or external saviors, all to take away our power and make us have to depend on what is outside of God's and saviors. So programmed are people who need external saviors to save yourself from eternal hell. Fire, created by these entities, everything to make us weak and offer them worship of these entities. In religion, occultism and folklore, a demon or the moon from Greek, daemon, which is pronounced the moon there, just like him, he is a supernatural being, described as something that is not human and which usually turns out to be malevolent without. However, the original Greek word is neutral and does not contain a connotation necessarily negative in its beginnings, for the ancient Greeks. This happened due to the application of the koine in the Hellenistic and in the New Greek Testament of the term daemon, Jones, and later took credit for that evil meaning to any word, like it shared the root when it was originally intended to denote simply a spirit or a being spiritual. It is also said that it can refer to people with knowledge, elevated like the philosophers. The only way to destroy or expel these parasitic entities is through the connection with the original source and the soul. They know this power that everyone, beings with souls possess, so they perform this theater number 4, deceive humanity, hypnotized into the exorcisms that they show us in documentary films, etc. Always, we see how a possessed person takes out, foaming at the mouth, rolls his eyes. White people are scared by the cross shown by the priest and writhe by the floors with holy water. This is a montage made by the same entities that parasitize the humanity by the components of the cross. Corporation is a warning to the being with a soul, is a subliminal message, which means that if someone tries do the same thing that Jesus did, free enslaved souls on this farm prison, they will eliminate him anyway. It is like when in the Middle Ages they exhibited in the entry and exit from the towns to the most sacred enemies is a warning. By that's why the elite gives so much publicity to through religion and its slaves. Hiding is not because they believe in Jesus and its true mission, but for the subliminal warning to those who they come to free souls. That is why they also celebrate every year the called Holy Week. They show us in movies, figures, etc. to a Jesus emaciated, full of wounds, bloody, suffering, crucified. That's how they want us to see it. May we remember the suffering that they made us pass, and on top of that they told us blame for his death, and they tell us that did to cleanse our souls, sinful and dirty, a master move. Now I will explain how they are plugged in and to these entities, quote, living beings. They have the vast majority of humanity foresighted, and they do it through the sexual energy points that connect with the energy that comes from Mother Earth. That's why the controllers, from hypersexualized humanity to through porn movies, ultra shunk slave from the world entertainment, the fashion that every time they make women dress in a more provocative way so that the entire humanity falls into this trap. They did at first was to modify DNA in such a way that there is always human during mating season. Another of the ways was to make the subject of sex prohibited to humans through of religions. When it prohibits, it is something you're making there be. After that prohibition, more desire to break with the chains set, all as an act of rebellion, which is why from in the 60s the prohibition of sex in movies, in the world, entertainment and fashion in general. Now sex is everywhere, pornography is available to everyone. World parasitic entities are lurking like predators in search of its prey. Regarding sexual energy begins to ascend in the body of the prey. These entities are coupled together, plug into the 2 lower chakras or energetic points that connect with Mother Earth. These entities do in occasions when 2 people attract each other to perform the sexual act in. Sometimes they use a person as a portal, organic, and through that person, these portals feed after orgasm. Organics are called sexual vampires. These portals are everywhere, organic especially in discotheques, clubs, striptease, hostess clubs, sex shops, etc. These sexual vampires, most of the time they suffer from a state hypnotic to prevent them from escaping clutches of parasitic entities. Drugs of all kinds are intended to weaken the human being and convert in a zombie an organic portal to these entities. The substances, psychotropic drugs, were created and distributed by controllers to weaken the human and therefore, previously mentioned, everyone works in unison. They are one mind, hive working with the same goal, and feed and maintain a network of cosmic food. For them is a network. In addition, these entities have energy feeders in such places, who are at the top, control in collaboration with these entities are in charge of building these places to feed their deities and archon hierarchies to eliminate these entities of places or people there are, then burn them with the inner light with the soul. Apart from making the connection with the original source, the place or person infected and oneself is important. Connect with the original source, since this protects you and supplies light to the soul, creating protection for your around, a deadly shield for these beings. To expel or eliminate these entities must be done by force, not you can negotiate or talk to them or try to convince them, since they are doing their job and never they will want to agree to abandon a being, I live or place for good. When I have expelled or eliminated one of these beings, I have done it by force. When they possess someone and turn them into organic portal, they will always come out talking through the victim, trying convince those who expel them to avoid being deleted and losing your source of food. These entities are also liars and will pretend to be powerful entities, etc. You should never pay attention to them. The way eliminating them is by making the victim connect with the original source, helping to connect to the parasitized and guide him until his soul part reactivates and kills the parasite. If it parasitized my soul cannot do it alone, my true self rescue your soul is in a parallel dimension, lethargic in a state of dream and trapped by these entities that with caution they are feeding on it is, as in a spider web trap. The method is access that dimensional plane and activate it through conversation, make her see that she is strong, powerful, and then connecting it to the source, original. You will also have to talk to the victim, so that with his will he attracts his soul and thus it will be free and strong again. But there are organic portals that never, these beings have had souls, they do not desire, get rid of the parasite because, belong to the corporation, are often used to carry out murders, create the chaos around them, are psychopaths, mentally controlled by these entities to cite, often most psychopaths, they declare that they were forced to do those atrocities because of the voices in the head that tormented them and gave them the guidelines to follow to murder people. Often the acquaintances of these organic portals describe them as normal people who didn't lift, suspected of being serial killers, apart from being possessed humans and for summoned by evil entities. Know the art of camouflage among people. Normal, they copy humanity with a soul, to go unnoticed and create the chaos around them to feed the archon deities and the entire group of interdimensional parasites. Then there are the hybrids placed in the top of the control pyramid. These hybrids belonging to the corporation are placed by the hierarchs of the Archon corporation, called controllers, who create the control lines. Always put their hybrids in charge of prison farms, then as an excuse towards the slaves, and so that they do not realize that these hybrids come from these entities, extraterrestrials. When saying extraterrestrial, I mean beings that don't, they belong to the planet, whether they belong to others, dimensions, or planes of existence. These hybrids do not have a soul that comes from the original source, but the energy that they have inside comes from the dark source. Do not have a pure soul. No, they are part of the creative light. They are avatars of darkness and serve the corporation, are a hive mind for that, are not punished by karma. They are doing your maintenance work and control of the prison farm, but if not, they do their job of control well, eliminated along with the slaves. Work of these hybrid controllers is to prevent the escape of a great prison farm soul number, dehumanize the population and turn them into biological robots little by little, until they become beings that they only serve as food to the archon deities. That is the real reason of the increase in technologies in population, turning into robots, biological without any motivation, escape from prison farm, integrate that technology in our bodies, physical, so that we lose humanity, that makes us thinking beings, and with free will and under our authorization we agree to place the tracking chip implants, we will turn into biological robots with the sole purpose of being food for the Archon Corporation. Continuing with the theme of the parasited from the portals, organic beings with dark souls, etc. How to detect a paras summoned, how to detect an organic portal, a dark soul to a psychopath who camouflage among people to perform your work for someone who has the dormant extrasensory senses or in a state of lethargy. It is very difficult but not impossible. We have all felt that sudden feeling in front of someone, or place, that feeling that something is not right. Well, it is the sixth sense that warns us of danger. You should pay attention to that feeling because it is the soul that is warning us, the elevated part of our being that is alarming, is warning us that something doesn't work. We must always be alert in a high sensitivity state, paying attention to everything around us, trying to perceive everything that is around us, being in that state of perception, we will be able to see what is really there, around us. That way I perceive everything that surrounds me. That way I can see entities and perceive beings of the darkness through the power of vibrational perception, or is made of, perceive entities through vibration, and places where these entities live. Chapter 12. Everything you think and you visualize, you are creating it in another temporal or dimensional line, are gears of a great machine in operation to create different realities in this physical dimension. When you think and visualize something with strength every day, you are bringing it to the actually you are creating it on another line, temporary, that if you give it the energy necessary you will make it real. At first I didn't understand this concept, but after analyzing it and seeing the results I realized that it is a basic principle in this universe. You become what you think. Yes, you think of misery and discomfort in negative, you will attract all that. You must think that everything you want is already there. You have to visualize what you want to achieve in this life. Visualize is create. If you don't visualize it, or you have doubts about what you want, you will never really have anything you want. Set a goal, write it down, paper, and keep it in a secret place. Only you can see it and no one else. I can touch it once a day afterwards. Look at that wish list. You will see that in time it will become real. Is the law of attraction. Everything you think attracts. Chapter 13. The life of avatars, beings infiltrated into the planet for liberation from the prison farm. As I have mentioned before, to access this plan, dimensional beings of light, those that are in full connection with the original source, and they come for liberate the planet, they must access through physical incarnation, is a way which does not raise suspicions, input controllers and exits of souls, and also does not infringe the laws of non-interference of the races in evolutionary process. When a being of high evolutionary level access this plan through the physical incarnation, does it as any other living being on the planet. Beginning of his coming to this plane, physical will not remember anything, since it will be erase memory so as not to lift. You suspect your memory will go away, waking up little by little, since if the avatar as a child begins to use their powers, since they come with DNA fully activated, the dark ones will detect and try to eliminate it. What happened to Jesus? The dark ones, they detected their presence even more incarnate on the planet and tried eliminate him. His parents had to flee, and they had to hide it while it was a child. These avatars are designated some physical protectors of the side from Inky's rebels as an extra dimensional, those beings that are in full contact with the original source and who live in high dimensions, and parallel to this are those who they have sometimes called angels. This planet has been sent several emissaries of the original source, genetically modified, by which I call the rebels, those who came out of the Archon corporation to help races in the evolutionary process. Humans and non-human animals spiritually escape from this farm prison. As I have already explained previously, there was a rebellion in this solar system in which the geneticist in a here and their side, those who joined to him to free the human race, they came into contact with the races that are connected to the original source, beings of light, and escaped from the Archon corporation. When the components of the corporation, they realized this rebellion was already late and decided to do a reset of the planet to start again, they also placed strong systems of security to prevent the escape of slaves, just as it is done in a prison or an animal farm. They place electric fences, alarms, stronger bars, guards, heavily armed cameras, surveillance. In the same way they are placed strong security measures at the level planetarium. On this planet, for example, there are the so-called van belts. Allen were placed to avoid the exit from the planet with technology, advanced control in dimensional portals, control on a spiritual level through network of souls that are controlled by entities dedicated to preventing souls escape, and they control equally way to those who make trips, astral conscious exits from the body. physical to prevent them from discovering the truth of all this framework is because, which is why it costs so much to make a trip, astral, in every solar system or galaxy dominated by the Archon Corporation. There have been rebellions to release them in all these solar systems have been made, planetary prescriptions to avoid slave escape 100 all send avatars to release them from within, similar to an antivirus. These avatars in most of the time they are eliminated by the corporation to prevent escape of the souls trapped here, and then it is created egregor in the shape of the avatar to receive the energy of worship of hypnotized humans. Then it changes almost imperceptible the history of these avatars, and religions are created around of them. What is important for the corporation is that the human slave does not achieve spiritual liberation or activate your DNA or your inner power. They also infiltrate their workers to introduce ritual prayers and mantras to prevent activation of power inside. What is important for them is create confusion in humanity, division by religious beliefs, worship of the external creation of heroes, idols, gods, etc. Everything to maintain the human with feelings of inferiority, guilt, weakness, fear of belief that if you don't behave well and you do not follow the laws and regulations of behavior that they put on you, you go to the hell. In addition to eliminating the avatars of the original source blames us for their murders, and they portray them to us as martyrs, and the trick is that they put it in our heads that we must continue his steps as martyrs, and that bloodshed is necessary, clear necessary for deities, archon, who feed on suffering and religious fervor of humans which have created the dates of fervor, religious such as the week, holy, where for a week the energy of worship and suffering for the murder of Jesus, that they themselves, in addition to being a mockery towards the real Jesus, is a way of drain entire humanity in those dates. And there are people who spill blood trying to emulate Jesus, they flog themselves, they even nail themselves to crosses, to recreate the whole passion scene, a feast for these entities, without, narrated for ya.com audiobooks. Remember to subscribe to our channel, and if you can give us a like, we will appreciate. Welcome, music.